Welcome to Is This Home Truly? This is our third town hall in the Tahan series. Tahan is a three-part, for now, town hall series that was meant to mirror the budget debates in Parliament by having a people's debate in parallel, right? Because these are issues and concerns that belong to all of us, and that we hope that we can build more public debate and understanding and vibrant discussion around. So it's been a really exciting journey for us so far. The team that's organized this Town Hall series is the Manifestival, and we're a coalition of civil society groups in Singapore. So I'm Koki, and this is...
Hi, I'm Elijah.
Yeah, and we will be your hosts for today. Okay, so it's really exciting to see some familiar faces. And, this is obviously a topic that is very close to all of our hearts because it's about home, right? And that matters to each and every person who lives in the city. And so I'm really excited to introduce to you the speakers we have today who will kick off the discussion. So they will speak for the first segment of today's event, and then they'll have a bit of a discussion amongst themselves. And then we're going to open up the town hall, which will be where all of you can offer your analysis, your comments, and ideas for change, right? So really what we're here to talk about is the housing crisis in Singapore today, what all of our concerns are, what are our aspirations and hopes for the future, and how we can get there together. Yeah, and so Elijah will shortly introduce the speakers, and we'll introduce each of them before they speak so that you can get a better perspective of where they're coming from. I'm also quite excited because our panel of speakers have very diverse perspectives and come from very different points of view when it comes to the housing issues in Singapore. But before we get going, and feel free to shout out any answers, right? But just wanted to get a sense of what are your key concerns around housing in Singapore today? Why are you here? What is on your mind? What is bothering you? It's expensive. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah? The fact that we're profiting off of housing. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the room today who wants to be able to move out of, say, your parents' home, but doesn't feel like you can afford to? Can we see a show of hands? Wow, yeah. Is there anyone who's in the process of applying for a BTO? And navigating that maze? Okay, who's terrified by the process of applying for a house and figuring all of that out? Yeah. Anyone anxious about the homes you're currently living in and their value going down? Anyone here who's lived in a public rental housing flat? Yeah, so, there's a lot of diverse experiences in this room, a lot of wisdom, and that's what we hope to glean as much as we can out of the discussion today. So with that, I'll just hand over to Elijah to introduce our first speaker. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Koki. I was looking at the photos here and then the panelists, right? I realized that they're in the same outfits, so pretty cute. Yeah, right, yeah. So you got the real deal. It's accurate publicity, no false marketing. Okay, so the first speaker we have today is our dear Liana. So
Sorry, I just want to say, no videography is allowed from the audience. We will be taking official videography, so you can access that online later, but you need to stop recording. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so our dear Liana. Liana is an entrepreneur, author, speaker, and aspiring parliamentarian. She consciously strives to break biases and stereotypes, practice non-violent communication, and inspire hope in all that she does. Work and life as a mother of 4 keep her busy. But in between it all, she actively advocates for low-income and marginalized families. She attains her best ideas when she's in the shower or how do I pronounce it?
Sujud.
Sujud, yeah. All right, so Liana,
Thanks, Elijah.
stage is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I will like to channel some of your energy here because I just got discharged from 9 days in the hospital. So I really hope that, I can draw some energy for you guys and deliver this speech for you. But if in any instances where I pause at the moment and all that, please bear with me as I get up to speed. All right. So I'm honored to have this opportunity to speak with you today about a topic that is very close to my heart and one of the most pressing issues in Singapore, housing, right? I hope that we're all in alignment here. I have personally experienced the struggles of being a homeless and faced the challenge of homeownership in this city-state. It's often praised for its affluence and prosperity. Yeah, there you see. I have detailed that personal account in my memoir. Thank you so much, Alma, for doing that on my behalf. That is what you call a shameless plug. The fact that we are still talking about this housing issue in Singapore in this day and age is deeply concerning. Home ownership is often defined as a 99-year lease here in Singapore. But what does that really mean? It means that after 99 years, the property goes back to the government. This might not be a concern for many of us, but for those who have invested their life savings into a property, it is a big issue. What happens to their investment after 99 years? This uncertainty has caused many Singaporeans to worry about their future and their children's future. Subsidized housing should be affordable, and affordability means different things to different people. Furthermore, there are many people whose incomes fall outside the criteria of subsidized housing. These people are often left in a difficult position as they struggle to afford rental rates that are increasing. We must recognize that the housing issue in Singapore is complex and multifaceted. It's not simply a matter of building more homes or providing, more subsidies. We must also consider the impact of rising rental prices for Singaporeans and non-Singaporeans alike. Landlords are increasingly jacking up rents to take advantage of higher income Singaporeans and expats who come from countries with stronger currencies. This phenomenon not only affects those who are struggling financially, but it also has wider implications for average income households who are increasingly choosing between paying rent or mortgages and other expenses, leaving them burdened. As a society, we must work together to find solutions to these issues. Should we then bring back rent control? Question. Perhaps not everyone needs to purchase a property to have a roof over their head. The reality is that Singaporeans' housing market is one of the most expensive in the world. For many, the dream of owning a home seems unattainable. Stagnant wages or salaries only add to the difficulty of making ends meet. And many people find themselves struggling to pay rent or afford basic necessities. We need to ensure that everyone has access to safe and affordable housing, regardless of their income or social status. Now, one potential solution I can think of to these housing issues could come from Kate Raworth's Donut Economics book. This approach suggests that we should aim to create an economy that meets the needs of all people while staying within the limits of our planet's resources. In the context of housing, this means that we should focus on building sustainable homes that are affordable for everyone, not just those who can afford it. At the same time, we need to address the root causes of stagnant wages and salaries and work to create more equitable opportunities for all. This may mean investing in educational and skills training programs that actually helps meet career switches, as well as working to address systemic issues of inequality and discrimination. A universal living wage is a healthy approach that can help to ensure that everyone has access to a basic income, regardless of their job or income level. This would help to reduce income inequality and ensure that everyone has the resources they need to afford basic necessities, and one of that is housing. So in conclusion, the housing issues in Singapore are complex and multifaceted, but we must continue to address them if we want to build a society that is truly inclusive and equitable. We need to work together as a society to find solutions that are equitable and sustainable, and that ensure that everyone has access to safe, affordable housing and a decent quality of life. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing, author of Homeless. So yeah, I think it's really insightful learning about the donut economy, and also the emphasis on not only the importance of sustainability and affordability of housing, but also how multifaceted it is and the importance of addressing the root problems, right? Yeah. So moving on quite closely to that also, look at a broad picture. King Soon will be speaking next. So King Soon is a retired but active architect who in 2019 co-authored the first non-partisan citizens policy proposal for addressing Singapore's key housing problems. So in the 1970s, King Soon conducted research on HDB's high-density, low-rise housing. He then went to KL, where he built 10,000 modern kampong houses. He has developed ideas on urbanization, an alternative model of human settlement, and King Soon's other passions are trying to revive the Scouts and start kampong economies. Okay, over to you, King Soon.
By the way, these are my two friends from Germany who are here because they thought that Singapore's housing is fantastic. But I think I corrected that view, right? Okay, I'm afraid that I'm going to sound like an angry old man. Yeah, because I think the housing problem we have in Singapore is a no solution problem. Okay, and why is that so? In the beginning, public housing was, I think, until fairly maybe into the early 90s, was Singapore's crowning achievement. We really were able to provide affordable housing for a lot of people, right? But today, I think that it has overrun its time, and I think the greatest mistake that was made by the government was to sell the idea to the population about asset enhancement. That is really an opiate in which people got drugged, okay? And it, in the process, has weakened the entire society. And this is what I'm going to talk about. Okay, why there's no U-turn? There are three interrelated problems. Number one, the government created the problem in which it trapped itself. Why? Because the affordability, the asset value of the flats cannot go up. It went up very, very steeply in the beginning because Goh Chok Tong said that buying a flat is more than having a roof over your head. It is an asset investment, right? And then Lee Kuan Yew actually told everybody that the government will make sure that the value of your flat will never go down, okay? Which is totally untrue. Unless the government does a miracle. That's because there's a law, there's an economic law called Bala's law. Bala was an economist who advised the government during the British period that said that rental properties, after they reach 50 years, there will be an inevitable decline in value. Why? Because banks will not be able to finance any property that has less than 50 years lease left. Okay, therefore the value deterioration is inevitable. So this is a trap that the government is in, and because of this trap, the second trap that many Singaporeans who bought flats. By the way, 90% of Singaporeans own their own flats, which is an amazing achievement. that almost the entire life saving is in the flat, right? It is the only asset that they have. And therefore, they are all hoping that when the time comes that they need to retire and sell their flat and to downsize or to migrate to Johor, they will have to suffer a loss in their price recovery. The third, which I think is the most serious issue, which affects most of the young people here, since most of the people here are young, is that the first-time buyer in the BTO or even in the resale flats are entering into a debt trap in which they are going to be trapped for 25 to 30 years paying off their mortgages. Now, what are the implications of all these three? Number one, the government is going to be afraid that they're going to lose votes because the retirees are going to be very angry. They cannot recover the full value what they expect from their property, so they're going to vote against the government. So the government's majority position in parliament will actually decline, and this is worrying them. And therefore, they are handing out bits and pieces of money, $100 for this, $300 for that, and so on. Finally, young people. The problem is this, that the Singapore demographics is, I call do you all know the demographic thing? It's the Buddha head, right? Right? The sharp peak at the top because people live longer, the bulk at the top, and then the younger people are very small at the bottom. So demographically, the young people are irrelevant in a hyper-capitalist economy. Young people are irrelevant not only because of numbers, that they are small in number, but because they are in a debt trap. And being in a debt trap, they cannot risk anything because they have to pay the mortgages. And therefore, all the entrepreneurial spirit that they have, they cannot exercise. So therefore, they cannot be all of you cannot be relied upon to build a new Singapore. I'm sorry. You are irrelevant. Okay? Unless you are incredibly exercised about the future and you are going to stand up, right, and make your presence felt powerfully. Your silence is a disaster for Singapore. Okay? So this is where I think that the two issues that the government are attempting to address, which they call affordability, and the other is accessibility. So affordability, they are giving all kinds of grants, right? Up to $120,000 grant, right? Accessibility, they're going to build a lot more flats. But there's a third factor which is totally missing in the discussion, and that is sustainability. I'm not talking about environmental sustainability. I'm talking about the survivability of Singapore. Because if young people and the older people are debt trapped, right, and the asset value is eroded, they are not going to be the principal movers, right, to shift this economy to a high gear. That is the position. So, despite all the humanitarian concerns that we all have, right, we want to be good and to the old people. We want to be good to the dispossessed. We want to be helpful to the single parent families and so on. All the kind of concerns that you are concerned about, right? Yes, but I'm saying that unless you deal with the problem at a structural level, right, you are not going to solve this problem. And what is the structural level? The structural level, I want to debate it later on with anyone here, is that the government who has creamed off the asset value because land was added to the building costs, right? And all that money has gone into the reserves, right? Every citizen in Singapore now should demand a citizen's dividend, right? It's impossible to calculate what that dividend will be because we do not know what is the total amount of asset that has been salted away, and we do not know what has been the investment outcome of that money, all right? But whatever it is, that is a demand, that is a necessity, that is what makes citizenship meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, King Soon, for sharing, the importance of tackling the core of the issue, the debt trap that we're all in, and also the structural issues of adding land to building costs. And, very importantly, like your proposal of having a citizen's dividend, which many people seem to resonate with. And also, the sentiment that like, if you're silent, we're going to continue to be disastrous. So young people, make sure you stand up and make your presence felt powerfully. So let's move on to our next speaker, Ama. So Ama is a property agent with 7 years of experience in the industry. He has a deep understanding of Singapore's real estate market and specializes in helping HDB owners upgrade their portfolios. He is passionate about educating average Singaporeans on property investment and empowering them to make informed decisions through creative TikTok videos. In his free time, he is always looking for new ways to help Singaporeans make the most out of their property investment. So over to you, Ama.
What's up, guys? What's up? How many of you follow me on TikTok? Can I get a show of hands? How many of you have seen my TikTok videos?
Fishing.
Nice. So can I say it's just my family lah? None of you lah. Okay, cool. It always sucks to go after King Soon, you rile up everybody and then here the property agent is here to give his. Okay, I'm going to address the is it white elephant? Pink elephant, is it? You all know the term, the elephant in the room, okay? Why the hell is a property agent sitting over here, right? What do I care about housing affordability? Correct? I think everybody's thinking that. Nobody wants to say it to my face. It's cool. Yeah. I agree with you, because the truth is, housing go up, housing go down, doesn't really affect my job. I'm recession proof, right? So I think the main concern here today is that after doing this for 7 years, it's important to realize, why do I begin to care about housing? And let me take you back. Now that I'm 7 years in the industry, it's honestly all right. I have my clientele, but I wasn't always this property agent that did well. If you notice that 20% of property agents make 80% of the entire income's revenue. So when you are in your second year, your bank account is about $50, right? You don't have much inside, and you're self-employed, and things were not great for me. That was in 2018. And let me tell you guys, in 2018, my father had a stroke. He's here today, don't worry. Still alive and well, doing well. My father had a stroke, he had 2 heart attacks, and he lost his job. I was the sole breadwinner. My brother has his kid, no one could take care of him. So I was the only one, and I only had about $100 in my bank. And as a sole breadwinner with no clients, what is the best way to make money to take care of the immediate medical needs? A stroke very expensive here. This uncle over here never even take insurance. Yeah, you all know, older generation, no insurance. So who take care? We take care lah. Mr. Kingston, you got insurance? You have, right? Please, okay. Older generation, all of you, those who still healthy, please go take insurance. I'm not insurance agent, but please go and call somebody. Alright. So he didn't have any insurance. I had to pay for all of that stuff. And Dr. Wan Rizal, back then, 2019, Dr. Wan Rizal came doing his door knocking. Alright? And how many of you know who Dr. Wan Rizal is? MP for Jalan Besar. Alright? Before that was my favorite, Mr. Yaakob Ibrahim. I love him. All he ever tell me is stop spending your money on cigarettes. Okay? That's his only advice to me. So Dr. Wan Rizal, new MP, comes on board, knocks my door, all right? And he looks at me, and then my father, who has a stroke, he can barely speak, right? We have a monthly mortgage at that time of 1,009. Is that right, Ba? 1,009 cash, taxi driver, cannot drive anymore. He knocks on the door, and my father's trying to explain to him that he has a stroke and he doesn't know what to do. He can't pay for this house anymore. Estimated mortgage at that time, before HPS, which we didn't know, kicked in, was about, we are looking at about 100K plus in our outstanding loan. And he looks at me and he just asks, oh, what's your son doing? Right? And I say, I'm the sole breadwinner. I have to take care of my mother, housewife, my father. I'm also a property agent. I don't have many clients. I don't have a job. I'm working 2 jobs part-time just to pay the bills. And he looks at me and he says this to me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truth. God as my witness. He looked at me and told me this. Yeah, you property agent, sure, no problem lah. Can take care of your father. How does that make you feel? Right? So, I had to take care of him lah. No choice ma. MP also cannot already, right? What was the point go to meet the people session? So never mind. I went and investigate because new property agent need to learn to calculate. So I calculate for my father and then I noticed this. All of his money, if we decide to sell the house, goes back to his retirement account. There is nothing left after we buy another house to fully pay, to pay for the medical bills. There's nothing. So, my time is very short, so I try to speed up a little bit, okay? So moving forward, that was where my passion is from. It's 2 things, guys. Number 1, how is our retirement tied to housing? All of our money is put into housing. Then what do we do for retirement? Then the average mortgage price is already at 1,009. Alright, today, average person, you all want to buy BTO, if Amokyo, you all dream long to pay your entire CPF to cover for just the mortgage. Still have to top up cash. That is your future if you continue to put your priorities in just clearing your mortgage. You have no way to plan for your future. Don't talk about retirement. Talk about living life, lifestyle, enjoying. Not just surviving. Our housing is heavily tied to just surviving. A roof over your head. Kopi Talks 2019. PM Lee said this. A house is there. Wait. PM Lee must make sure word for word. There's a kind of problem. There you go. 1 second. I screenshot, guys. 99 years is a very long time. A word for word from the PM. Let's say you buy a new flat from HDB in your early 30s. At the end of 99 years, you'll be 130 years old. Wow, this guy joker. And probably would have not need this flat anymore. If you have children, they will also be very old. Almost as old as the flat itself in the 80s and 90s. And you have grandchildren, your grandchildren will already be grandparents. So 99 years is a very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, so if 99 years is a very long time, what is PM Lee saying here? They don't care about what you do in the house. You have a house, that's my problem. Retire how? Sell to who? Oh, don't worry, we have lease buyback scheme for you. Then after that, the house go? What happens? Where you stay? Verse lah, don't worry. Verse is for who? All those who don't pay the lease buyback scheme. Alright, my time is completely up, guys. So sorry. But we will discuss more. I don't want to see all of your opinions and hear all of your thoughts later on.
Thanks so much for sharing, Ama. And looking forward to hearing more from you also, especially with how you talked about how ridiculous it is that housing affordability is tied in with retirement and even survivability right now. Yeah, so let's move on to our final speaker for today, Zubi. So Zubi is a community worker, trainer and speaker who has more than 10 years experience working with families from low-income communities to gain economic empowerment. She has contributed stories to the book Perempuan that chronicles the experience of Malay Muslim women in Singapore and is the writer behind an upcoming book, Dreams of Our Daughters. Zubi has worked for Aware, Daughters of Tomorrow, and currently works in a family service center. So over to you.
Thanks. So tough how to follow these esteemed panelists. They're so animated, so powerful. I'll do my best. Yeah, so as a community worker, I see a lot of women, especially single moms, go through the housing system. So I have a close friend and colleague who has been living in public housing for the past 20 years. The current flat alone is 12 years. So many things happen within this space of like maybe as big as this space, right? You all know how rental flats are within the 30 to 40 square meters. I don't know, maybe Amar can correct me there. And then, so many things happen within that small space. They give birth to children, children get married, grandchildren come about, and all that. And in the meantime, marriages end and marriages get restarted, so the reconstituted families happen. And in any other country, this would not have had any impact, on their future. You can, whatever happens in your house, your own business, right? Nobody, bothers. But in Singapore, it does. Because who you marry, what family makeup, you set up, you are in future, what will affect your future chances. And instead of this doing just a debt threat, not death threat, debt threat, is also a booby trap, because many families are caught unawares by the penalties that they face when they access housing loan like more than 2 times, or pays when they downsize. So why so difficult? Why can't families from rental flats just simply move to purchase housing, on their own when they have enough money? So that's not just the end of the story. It gets a lot more complicated than that. So it's not just like a funds. So it is also a policy barrier for most families. So I was part of the field research team for the Aware Single Parent Housing Project in 2016, and later on with the Safe Housing Enablement Scheme, which is a pilot project to explore shelter housing for single parents. So we know that housing eligibility and policies are not just dependent on funds. It is also interlinked with many things: your marital status, your dependency status. For example, a marriage could end, but that doesn't mean that the families could have access to better housing. So maybe the best solution would be just to put them in shelters. And they stay in shelters, and then they will be moved to public housing rental. But this doesn't mean that that is the end of the story, because there is no attempt to stabilize the family. Like, okay lah, so you go through the system, and then you go to public housing, and that's the end. So you have to be an advocate of your own housing journey. And many times this affects low-income families who do not have knowledge, or even for us also, we also don't know what the policies are, right? So for a lot of families, for foreign moms especially, they do not understand what the policy barriers are, so they are caught in between. I myself was caught when I got a divorce, so that's why I said, I used to stay in a rental flat as well, not understanding the full impact of being homeless after the end of a marriage, just like maybe Liana as well too, right? So what is the solution for this? In my book that we mentioned, is out already, I said families languish in public housing estates. Languish means they stay there for years. Like I said, my friends, 20 plus years. So where is the social mobility for them? There isn't any. So how can we say that we are a progressive nation, we are a first world nation, if we do not take care of the vulnerable and weak in this society, in the community? And this impacts children the most. When families are displaced, children not knowing what's happening, reeling from the impact of divorce, also faces displacement. Like, my school could be 2 hours away, I have to wake up early, I have to make new friends and all that. And this while dealing with the impact of the loss of a parent. So these are the social impact of families who are displaced by policies, by not knowing enough and being caught in between. And as I said, I mentioned earlier, you have to be an advocate, your own advocate, right? You've heard so many people say this, got to go up and down HDB many times, got to see HDB officer many times. So, but why? When you talk about, okay. So we talk about, people who are time poor, who are working, who are exhausted from working long hours. How are they going to be an advocate of their own housing solution? And we always talk about go and see MP, right? That's our solution to everything, every damn thing that we face. Go see MP. But if you've been to see the MP, you know that the experience is. I see a few shaking heads. Yeah, I know that that cannot be the solution. There must be policies that protect, that support, and uplift families and give them the opportunities to get out of poverty, not keep them trapped there. Thank you. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm scared of cookie. So we move on to the Q&A part of the discussion. Yeah. I look forward to a very heated debate, just as overheated as the housing situation is right now. I'm sure a lot of us have very strong opinions and discussion. Yes, I'm looking at you, King Soon, as well, about this. But please, let's keep to areas of like being respectable and willing to hear people out. All views are welcome here. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, I got it wrong. I'm talking. Okay, that one, hold on, Okay, so we've heard from Liana. We're all very overheated by the discussion, that's why I lost my place there. Who talks about the donut economy. And Liana herself, as you know, is a respected writer of the book Homeless. Describing her journey of being displaced and being homeless. I think she will talk about it more. So, Liana, what you talk about the donut economy sounds fun and yummy. Do you think there's a chance for it ever happening or being a reality for Singapore? You got mic?
Yeah, we need more mics so we don't need to pass around, or if not, we project our voice. I think going back to the question on if it's ever going to be realized or if it can actually be implemented depends on who are our lawmakers, who are in Parliament and who are advocating for it. Because I know that it was being brought up in the Parliament some weeks ago, this particular book. Can I have a show of hands who followed the circus online? As in the video of the parliamentary debate.
The circus, i.e. Parliament.
the video of the parliamentary debate. Anyone? No. Oh yes, thank you. So there are instances when it has been brought up, but to the ground of it being implemented, I think we are still a long way to go. On the context of understanding it on a whole, on how it can be a solution or something to our betterment for the future, that is a long way to go to. So, yeah, that's my response to that.
Thank you, Liana. I'm going to move on to the next question. I think for all the panelists are free to answer. What should housing policy be focused on? Because we have very complicated housing policies that are linked to our retirement, linked to our investment, and many other things. So what should it be actually? Should it be a shelter? Or should it be our retirement fund? Is it an asset that we should protect? So to appreciate, what is it actually? I want to say, what the hell is it?
Mr. King Soon, you want to go first?
It's an irrelevant question.
It's okay. We are used to that.
It's an academic question. Because the reality is that we are in this situation, right? There's no going back. It's a no-return situation, right? We have a housing problem. So to talk about what kind of housing policy we should have, it's an abstract question. We already have such a policy, and it is not working. So what are you going to do about it? That's the question. Right?
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from. You're already in this quicksand, getting out.
Yeah.
Amar, you have a point of view?
Okay, I see it as morality should be the top guiding north star of our housing policies. What do I mean by this? Inequality exists in all countries. Even in a communist country, we have inequality, right? Not everyone is equal. So morality to me comes from the point of being able to be kinder to the people of the lower income tier and the middle income by I wouldn't use the word punishing, but by taking more or allowing more opportunities for the young people like you guys. And those who have the capabilities to afford more and bigger or more expensive, let them be in that place alone. Housing should be focused towards making sure that people who are young, people who have a middle income-based tier system for housing. So putting the higher income people in the private property section. What pisses me off is these guys. I don't have a very big following, all right? You know, it's on TikTok, it's only about 20,000 people listen. Like that's it. I'm 19.7 guys, 300 more people. Please go and follow. You know? Okay. But what's more important is I do have a community that's huge on Telegram. 1,500 Singaporeans. It's quite hard to build. You all try create group chat 1,500. Okay? Not easy. All right. So in there, the number one question, guys, that piss me off, all right, is this. That I will really give a long text one, like we're going to break up with the person. Okay? This is the number one thing I hate. My income is 17,000. Sheikh, you can any way to appeal to get BTO. You know, that pisses me off. Because as Singaporeans are the biggest issue. If policies were driven by morality, our generation will change. Cannot change the current generation, but the future will change. Why? Because future will not be so capitalistic. It is the capitalistic nature of the BTO system that needs to be addressed. And that's where policies should be driven. Okay? Yeah, that's I gotta say.
Liana, next question.
So next
Question.
Sorry, one second.
Hello?
Test.
Okay, I hope I'm being heard, right? No. Can How about if I shout? Okay. The PAP has always boasted that most Singaporeans are homeowners. That's true, right? And emphasized that we should all aspire to home ownership. Is this necessary or even feasible? What are the traps of home ownership, if any? Would an alternative example be available? Expanding, maybe for example, on rentals or some other alternative type of housing. King Soon's going to say it's irrelevant again. So maybe Liana, you answer.
I think there's a lot of questions surrounding it as well for me, especially because I want to know the statistic of those who are homeowners, who are actually really homeowners, proud to be homeowners, or those who are just getting a home to survive and have a roof over their heads and being struck to a job that they don't really want to do and then are forced to do because they need to pay the mortgage on a monthly basis. So there are different qualities of being a homeowner, right? But at the same time, 99 years lease is a homeowner. It's so contradictory to me because you have a 99-year lease and then you call yourself a homeowner. And then in the document that you sign on the HDB, I don't know for those of you who have houses already or those of you who are yet to, read the contract. And it does say that you are a tenant.
Lessee.
So, a lessee, yes. So what does that mean to home ownership? To an individual?
Yeah.
That's that. And also, I think more needs to be done, especially when you touch about the single mothers who have exponentially a lot of barriers to access not even rental housing but purchasing another flat after their divorce, that policies need to be relooked. Overall, for me, I would say my stance is HDB policy need to be reviewed and really revamped.
Speaking of HDB policies, not many people know that we have had rent control in 1983, which means that private rentals, there is a cap. You cannot exceed certain amount, which is not the case today if you see the skyrocketing rental prices. Maybe Amar, as a professional, you might want to talk about or make a comment on the rental prices today.
It's crazy, guys. Don't rent. Go stay with your parents, seriously. Whoever who say, well, you all need your own space, or go try rent 1 month, okay? Then you all will come back to your parents. It's crazy. Rental prices are insane. Though I think I agree with Mr. King Soon talking behind the scenes, rent control without additional measures, in my personal opinion, will definitely tank the market, and it would be robbing the people of their asset value, right? So the way I see it, rent control can only work is if we put it specifically to HDB on the grounds that a cooling measure is released, that if you own, and Mr. Kingston actually passed this law in the 90s, is it? 60s? In the 60s. In the 60s, he passed this law, but I don't know what happened. I think somewhere along the line, something go wrong. Now it's possible. As a HDB owner, I know a lot of y'all like to do this thing, one owner, one occupier. Y'all have heard about it on TikTok, YouTube. A lot of people like to say that. That's the only way to own 2 properties, correct? So, I think a law should be passed that, once again, morality first, right? Where if you own a private property and you own a HDB, you are not allowed to rent out the HDB and stay in the private.
No, the law that
a bit different now.
The law that instigated to reform.
Can you give him, Liana, give him your...
The law that I instigated to be passed is that if you own an HDB flat and subsequently you buy a private property, you must sell the HDB flat back to the HDB. Because from what you say, there are a number of people that own private property as well as HDB, and then they are renting out the HDB.
Yes.
That is profiteering at the expense of the state. So I want to ask specifically, what happened to that law? Has it been rubbished? Has it been disappeared by the government?
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, everybody's doing it today. So that's the issue. We need to pass that law, and a lot of you guys need to make that noise, because why? This will help you in so many ways. It will rock the HDB market, where the resale will come down greatly, because a lot of private property owners don't want to let go of their privates. They would move back to their privates and sell that HDB. Now, a lot of HDB rents would start to go up, right? Then introduce the rent control at the HDB level. Because HDB mortgages against what's being rented it's insane. We talk whole flat, Whole flat, mortgage, average for 500,000 house, how much? Anybody know? Want to give me a number? Who owns a 500k house? What's your mortgage? 1,500. What is the rental for the average today in Eunos, guys?
How much?
3,500 for a 3-room flat. 3-room flat. Don't talk 5-room. I did an article with Mothership on this, giving the actual rents against what Minister of National Development released in his statement. I asked Mothership, a reporter, how did he get the data? I cannot find it. So, if can, I want to rent my HDB, go rent there. Sure. So, what I'm trying to say is that if we can introduce rent control in the HDB, flood the market back, then we will start to see good rent, we will start to see a healthy growth in the private property sector, and we will also start to see a much more affordable resale housing and BTO housing. Because BTO can only go down, guys, if resale goes down. That's the only way. And there's no, like, there's one, besides land price and of course all of these
Sorry,
other
King
factors
Soon disagrees there, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, the asset value of the old guys who own their flat will decrease. So you are killing two birds with two stones.
Yeah, but the asset value of the old guys staying in the old flats are going to decrease either way.
Yeah, but
What's the difference now?
so where are they going to go? Go to Johor Bahru, where the rent is $300 a month for
Penang is 1,000.
for
man. It's shook.
1,000 ringgit is $300 a month for one whole condominium unit.
With a sea
Right.
view.
Okay,
Yeah, with a
maybe
sea
I'm
view.
going to interject here.
Yeah.
Don't lah.
Thank
Let
you.
us debate lah.
Thank you. So it's good to know. So has there been any positive changes to housing policies lately from Parliament, from housing debates? Oh, the audience says no.
No, let me comment about Manwai's proposal,
Okay.
Leong Manwai's proposal, as it affects young people. For the first time BTO young people buying, they should buy at, the proposal made by me and Lam Kiong and a few others is that land price must not be included in the sale price of first time buyers. But they are embargoed for 15 years, right? They cannot sell. What Manwai did was he modified that, I think quite rightly, that if you sell, the land component, right, must go back to the government, right? So I think that is a fair arrangement. That will save the enterprise spirit of the young people, and that should be done immediately.
100%.
Amar, do you agree that the land prices
100%,
should not
100%.
be factored in
Definitely.
into our HDB prices?
I don't think so. It's so unfair, right?
I think to summarize King Soon's point, he doesn't want to destroy the market for the current owners of properties
Yeah,
right
you-
now.
you have to
Don't
protect.
throw the water with the bathwater of the baby, right? You cannot make things more difficult for people who are already staying in aging flats. You also talk about lease of HDB flats that's going to hit us very soon. Most flats, as we know it, are about 50 years old. And also, what do you think will be the impact of
Yeah,
that?
500,000 flats are going to be affected by 2030. So it's very, very serious.
What's the question?
The question
Well, it
is,
doesn't affect
we're
these
going to
guys,
be, our flats are going to be affected by the decaying lease, like 50 years and above. And how does it impact the housing market or those who are currently owning flats or reaching that age?
You see, the other thing is that the housing market is a very limited market because the population, 90% already own their flats, right? So you're buying and selling to each other, which is not a very big market, right? So what will happen is that if you are going to ensure the asset value of the older guys, right, then you have to bring in a lot of foreigners to buy, okay? What does that mean? That means that eventually the Singaporean becomes irrelevant because this country will be occupied by foreigners. But again, of course, it depends on the kind of economy, you see. Because in a robotic type of economy, as we drift towards robotics, actually you need less people in Singapore. So I think you're caught in this dilemma. Do you bring in foreigners? But you only bring in foreigners if you need to have them, right? And also if the Singaporean is useless, right? But because the Singaporean young people cannot take risks, cannot be entrepreneurial, cannot be adventurous. Therefore, you have to bring in foreigners to fill the jobs which young people are not suited for. I can tell you this. I was in a meeting held by the International Business Council, right? I gate crashed the meeting. Yeah. And the question that they asked the Ministry of Education is that they got a feedback from a lot of their member companies. Why is it that they prefer to employ a second-rate Australian than a first-rate Singaporean graduate, right? MOE was completely flustered by this question. They didn't know the answer. So the International Business Council gave the answer. They said, because our members tell us a second-rate Australian graduate has got savvy and got initiative. Your Singaporean graduate doesn't have it. This is damn serious because the Singaporean is damn smart. He doesn't want to risk his job, right? So therefore, he doesn't want to tell his boss what to do. He wants the boss to tell him what to do. But that's not what the boss wants. So we are in this kind of situation. It's a psychological trap.
So everything is interlinked and interdependent on one another. We've moved out of the housing topic and into the...
No, it's related to the
yeah,
to the
that's
topic.
what I mean.
Because
It
they
is really-
know that they are going to buy a flat of their own, and they know they are going to get into a debt trap. So better prepare your mind before you go into that trap.
And that's what PM Lee said, right? You know very well what you are buying into, the level of lease. So we will take back out the So, but for allowing foreigners to come in, it's also not going to make sense because at the 30-year mark, you can't get a bank loan. The 25th year mark, you can't use CPF. At the 20-year mark, you could still get HDB loan, but you got to mortgage it, pay your mortgage in cash. And at a 20-year mark, there is no loan available to you, so you got to pay everything in cash, right? So assume the value of the property is about that space, maybe 100 to 200K. Which foreigner, even if you allow them to buy, would want to buy it? If they have 200,000 to stay for 20 years, that's a down payment for $1 million flat that they can comfortably afford. They have 200K in cash. You think their income not very low, man? It's a lot. They can go and buy a private property for $1 million and still have a healthy amount of lease. So to allow foreigners to come in and say that this is just an extended lease at a cheaper price, 200K divided by 20 years, your rent is lower. What's the point? Foreigners will still be able to profit.
There are different kinds of foreigners. There are foreigners that buy a condominium for $30 million, all right? So we are not talking about that type of foreigner. We are talking about middle management foreigners.
Who have
right?
200,000 in cash to buy a
No, they will
HDB?
become citizens. Just like
Which
that.
one? Where? The percentage, or what is that percentage? Though?
Depends on the economy. Depends on how capable these guys are.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Yes, Koki. So we mentioned about the proposals made by the opposition party. I think there are about 70 points or 50 plus. King Soon, could you comment on that? What? The proposal made by the opposition party, Workers' Party.
Workers' Party is a very conservative proposal. I'm not really that interested in it, right? But I think Manwai's proposal is very solid. But because he's opposition, the PAP will not accept it, and that is the terrible burden that the PAP government, right, because of its oppositional mentality, right, is depriving Singaporeans of a good solution.
Can we? Can we? Last one, okay. So we are going to wrap up this segment soon, but before that, I just want to ask, so what are some ways that each of us can advocate for the progressive change to housing issues in Singapore? I think like putting ourselves out here is one of them. Got any other ideas how we can actually speak out about this housing, dilemma that we are in and what we can do about it? Eng Soon, got any ideas?
Yeah, I think the citizens' dividend is a must, right?
100%.
In other words, the government knows this, no? The government uses the income that they have generated from the reserves, right, to hand out, you see? In other words, to buy your vote, okay? We don't want that. We want the citizens' dividend to be a right of the citizen, right? It is our right as a citizen to have a share of our earnings. Very simple logic. If this island has nobody living here, the value of this island is zero. The mere fact that Singaporeans have been living here for the last 100 to 150 years, right? And started families here, started business here, and so on. We have created the value. And therefore, we are entitled to the value.
Thank you. I'll move to Amar. The question is, what are some ways that we can
Wait. I want to continue on this also. He gave a very good number earlier. Can you elaborate on the estimate of how much we would actually be paid monthly based on that
you can do
amount?
your own arithmetic.
Yeah.
Assume that the total reserves is $1.5 trillion. This is quite an estimate which a number of people have come to, which is, I think, quite credible. All right, just take 1 trillion. If you get 4% return on that 1 trillion, because the government uses the money and invests in all sorts of things, and they make more than they lose, right? They lose some, but they make a lot more. Just take 4%. 4% of 1 trillion is what? Right? Take that number, divide by 4 million Singaporeans, just for easy calculation, right? It works out to about $10,000 per person per year.
1,000, almost 1,000 per month, guys.
Yeah. So if you have a family of 4, it's $4,000 a month. That's serious money, right? But there has to be a limit, because some families go up to have 6 or 7 children, right? So there should be a limit. Say the grant the dividends only paid up to say 3 children. This also solves the total fertility rate issue. That means families will want to have more children to get more money, right? So so that means that has got national economic implications, that we increase our capability, right? Singaporean capability, so that we need less foreigners. So I think overall it is a good system, and I think it should be discussed publicly. Pressurize the government.
Round of applause, guys, for that.
Okay, we're going to move on. Oh, sorry, what? Oh, Liana, would you like to comment on?
Can move on. we have no words after that. Okay, take over.
Okay, well, can we thank all our speakers? And we will need to take some of your mics, okay, for the town hall. Okay. So this is for circulation. Okay, so we're going to move on to the town hall segment. After that, I think very stimulating discussion from the panel. So I think one of the things that came up from Kingston's sharing that I think is really quite poignant to explore further, right? Is the ways in which housing policy traps us in a lot of ways, and not just in debt, but politically too, right? Because so much of your savings and your entire life's hard work is tied up in housing, that also does affect how people vote. And there have been comments made previously about upgrades being tied to which party you vote in, right? And that then actually holds a lot of people in Singapore, 90% of people are homeowners, it holds them hostage to a certain party, right? Because development of your asset and its value is tied to them continuing to stay in power, is how it is framed. So I think those are also things to think about. There's also other ways in which housing has political implications through the ethnic quota and what that means for minority voices, right? Being able to influence politics. And so there's lots of, I think, really interesting things to explore, how that's also tied to the MPS system, which Zubi commented on, and how so many things have to be secured through the people session with your MP rather than as rights and entitlements. And that's also tied to where you live, right? And who happens to be your MP. So I think it's when you start pulling at the thread of housing, so many other issues unravel. We also want to create the space here to talk about a lot of the people that we tend to forget when we think about decent, safe housing for all. We have 1 million migrant workers in Singapore. So what is the status of their housing, or what kind of living conditions do they have, whether they are domestic workers who live within our homes, or whether they are migrant workers who live in often prison-like conditions in dormitories, right? And also, other marginalized groups like LGBTQ plus communities, singles that, so some of the things that Liana and Zubi have already touched on. Do you want to?
Yeah, and recently also NTU Financial Aid Friends posted on Instagram about how the hall prices for students, right, are rising up to 12% at an average of 11%. So it's a ridiculous amount of money that is expected for students to be paid out on top of already that very hefty fees to pay in order to access education, right, which is so ridiculous.
Yeah, so I guess in this segment it would be, you're welcome to share. You're welcome to ask the speakers questions. You're welcome to challenge them, disagree with them, and also to share your own concerns and views, right? What are your hopes for housing policy in Singapore? What have been your experiences or struggles navigating housing? And what ideas do you have for change? So the floor is open, and there are mics that will be passed around, so you can just put up your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay, so there is a mic there. And there is a mic here. Yeah, so there's someone at the back. Oh, okay.
Hi everyone. Really thankful for the panelists because I think I really hear a lot of insight. And thank you for organizing this town hall. And I think that it's really safe area that I can feel that everyone is in the same page. So personal experience, because I come from not a high income family, rather low to medium. So actually my parents got a BTO when I was very young, and they got divorced. So after that, the BTO house has to be sold, and after which they have to go through some of the things that they have to buy. And okay, so I touched on the government giving the subsidies, remember the grants and all. So after they sold off the house and then they buy a new house, they have to pay off the grant with interest incurred. So I'm thinking why is the government getting back the grants they give us and then add on more amount to ask us to pay lah? Then in a way our new house has to be a hefty sum again. So at HDB, I called they tell me, why not you go look for the MP lah? The MP can help you. Then after that, I went to the MP. I say, hey, anyway, I got this grant, the levy I have to pay. Then after I say, is it possible to, reduce it? So they say, you're moving out of my jurisdiction. Then why am I supposed to help you? Yeah, so it was a tough period lah. Then after that, they say when you move to the new house, the BTO coming already, then you ask the MP that area to help you out. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So apparently, the levy I still have to pay because if not, I can't get the house. So it's they give you, then they take back even more. Then what's the point for the subsidies?
Thank you. So we're live streaming the town hall. So the earlier segment was focused on the speakers, but at this point, the camera will be on the audience. So if you get the mic and you're speaking, if you don't want the camera to focus on you, just stay seated. But if you're comfortable with being on camera, you can stand. Yeah? So if you stay seated, the camera will continue pointing at the speakers. Yeah? So we have someone here who'd like to speak next.
They're not going to address the...
Yes. No, what? Sorry?
No, are they going to address what the person said? Oh,
it is an open conversation. You can respond. The speakers can respond. It's open.
Okay. Hi,
yeah.
I'm the brother. Like I said, Amar's brother, by the way. Whoever follows him on TikTok will probably see my cameo for a while. So anyways, hello. Thank you so much for organizing this town hall and for sharing all your wonderful opinions. And I don't really have a question. I'm going to throw out an opinion. And then I would like the panelists to give your views on that. So I come from a very academic. So I'm the brains of the family. Amar is also very smart. So I come from a very strong academic career and academic line of work. So I would like to look at this because I look at social forces and I look at the society and the community and what the people of Singapore are. So I look at the people, we come from a very filial piety community. We come from a very strong conservative community, and we come from this idea of how the property is somewhat of how we were supposed to, it's like a freedom kind of thing. It's a one way that we rebel against the authority, and not the authority that is our government, but the authority that is our family. and how we come out and identify ourselves in this world, right? And a house now for young people, it's a form, people propose using housing. Hey, BTO, that's a proposal now, not even a ring is important anymore. So I would like to ask the panel their opinions on what can we do, in the society like that? Like how do we educate them? So I really like Liana's point of view when she said that you are considered a leasee. You don't own the home. So will this kind of subliminal messaging give the reality to these young people saying that you don't own your home? That's not your house. You are just renting, and make sure that they know that this is not your fairy tale. Yeah.
Would any of the panelists like to respond to that? Okay, Kingston.
The Industrial Revolution in Europe, in Britain, and then in Germany, our German friends here have got some very interesting information. Ownership of a house is not the highest priority, right? The highest priority was shelter, and to have a place for the family, and to be able to have your own privacy, and so on and so forth, right? And so in Britain, the council housing, which was started by the Labour government in the early 50s, right, was the model on which Singapore public housing was based. And in Germany, a lot of the housing was all rental, right? And the idea of owning property is very alien in the German context. But the important effect of renting is that the cost of rent of the house was kept relatively very low, as a result of which the entrepreneurship amongst the people was very great, and that's how Germany prospered tremendously, and also Britain. All right. Now, the idea of owning property, right, I think it's a very Asian thing, right? And the issue then becomes what kind of ownership, what kind of security that you should have in the place of your family's abode that is important to you, because in terms of the overall infrastructure of the society and the economy, right? Housing should be regarded, and housing was regarded as an important component of the infrastructure for Singapore's economic growth, until the stupidity of asset enhancement, right? When the idea of affordable and very economical, very cheap housing was replaced by the induced, I like to use the word indoctrinated use, the indoctrinated concept of housing asset as a capital asset. And that's where the corruption of the entire society occurred. You see? Because people became greedy, right? But that being the case, you cannot now deprive them of it. That's why I say there's a no U-turn situation. Yeah, it's a capitalist society. It's worse, it's a hyper-capitalist society, right? So I think this is a question which we all have to think carefully about. What kind of society are we making? How are we going to be sustainable as a society, right? Because the economics are working against us.
Thank you, Kingston. I think there's another thing which I like that Amar also brought up, where you are tying policy speaking to morals, right? But I would actually espouse that we think about values in terms of making policies. Like, what values are we tying it to? And what does that mean then to the kind of policies that we rule out? How do we stick between capitalism and being humanitarian at the same time? thinking about those in-betweens or those who falls within the cracks and are just there at the edge of the gap. So there's so much, but it is dangerous because our society now wants things easy. So you will use that simple math to justify why housing right now is affordable to anyone. That is dangerous without even thinking about the complexities behind it. What ifs? No one rules in or put in divorce into the equation when someone is buying the house. But of course, who wants to get married, buy a house and get a divorce, right? No one. But at the same time, it does occur. And when it occurs, what happened? Are there contingencies in place for the people who go through this?
Thank you, Liana. Yeah. And King Soon. Anyone else wants the mic? Yeah, okay.
Hello, everyone. I am Myra. I'm also a property agent. I think thank you so much for the organizers. One of the things that really struck me in my first year as a real estate agent was when I realized I wanted to question the ethnic integration policy, so the ethnic quota. This was when I pretty much discovered that there's such a big gap in the profits that the minorities get as compared to the Chinese majority. So when you're buying from a BTO, everybody's buying at the same price, but when you're selling at the resale market, in a certain area like Queenstown, for example, the minorities would actually have to sell their house 100,000 lesser for some of the cases. So what is this, I don't know, I want to have a conversation to the floor, to the panelists, the relevancy of ethnic quota in this day and age.
Would anyone on the panel like to respond? Would anyone on the panel like to respond, or other audience members
Can I
respond
ask a question to the audience? Can all the Chinese people raise up your hand? If you're Chinese or Chinese descent. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. How many of y'all would love to stay in Little India? So I don't think we need ethnic quota anymore. Right? I don't think we're going to create an ethnic enclave. Not all Indians. I don't want to stay in Tekka, please. Okay, teruk, I tell you. So I don't wish to congregate with all my Indian people in one entire HDB block. I don't think.
Oh, Macha! What?
Neither am I I feel very claustrophobic if my entire block is Chinese. You know, I don't care. You know, I only know who the neighbor beside me and in front of me, very important. Don't go near my space. Okay? Don't encroach in my area. We respect each other's space. I think that's all that matters to us. And I think it's a policy in the 60s that definitely needs tweaking.
I also want to respond, actually, to Amar. I think Amar's perspective is one. And my question is actually also, why are we so afraid of minorities gathering? Why? I want an ethnic enclave, actually. Why can't I have one?
Yes.
Why are we so afraid when there's a lot of brown people in Little India and we have to have different curfews?
Yes.
Are we afraid that a particular constituency, if there's too many minority people, will leave the PAP's rule? What is it? Like, why don't we get to have a political voice? Your political voice is determined by the constituency you live in. And so what is the political representation of minorities if we cannot gather? And what is wrong with us gathering? So that's what I want to... Anyone else wants the mic? Can we come back to people who have spoken already later? Yeah, I think someone here has a mic. Yeah.
Hello. I just kind of wanted to speak on behalf of, I guess, because you spoke a bit about, the ethnic quota and, being an ethnic minority and home ownership. So I kind of wanted to speak on behalf of the disability community because I'm autistic. And as an autistic person, there are lots of jobs that I can't do. And I have a lot of limitations to my income And if you talk to any disabled person, whether they're autistic, have chronic pain, they're physically disabled, they will tell you the exact same sentiments. We are fundamentally exempt from the housing system because there's an income that we can't hit because of our conditions. So I guess is anybody here identifying as disabled or, okay, just me? Okay. Okay, so I kind of just wanted to open the floor to, the panel or anybody in the audience who, I guess it's where exactly are disabled people in the quota of housing? Are we not deserving of housing as well? Are we not deserving of, a roof over our heads just because we can't contribute to the economy, because we can't get a house, because of the fact that we physically can't work in certain conditions? So, and I just think it's interesting because, we talk a lot about negating the system, but some of us are just fully exempt. And I don't know if anybody else also resonates with that in terms of being in this shithole of a housing crisis. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody here would like the mic. Could you put up your hand so you can get it? Yeah. If anyone else wants the mic after, just put up your hand too so we can pass the other mic to you.
Hi. Yeah, I think the point mentioned is a super one. I think we speak about public housing, but I think we must understand that it's not really so much of a public element to it, because the houses are not apportioned or given based on the needs of a person. It's not whether you have a bigger family, you need a bigger space, or you got a lower income, you can afford something different. It's not based on your needs. It's based only on how much you can pay, which is to me more like a private sector model than a public model. So our idea of a public and private here is, I think, a bit warped and different. The public essence of it is just that it's made by the government. But we are paying a price with the land price, which makes it like a private market. So that, I think, is a big issue in the whole setup. Right?
Thank you. Anybody else wants the mic? Okay.
The issue of the ethnic allocation based on ethnic, I think the European examples are very instructive. The housing policy, say in France, right, meant that a lot of the Muslims were housed in suburban public housing areas. And then I think in Germany, also in East Germany and so on, you have housing areas allocated for different ethnic groups, right? And they are now places where there are huge amounts of social upheaval, right? They are places where there are a lot of violent demonstrations and so on and so forth. So this is something that the Singapore government has been trying to avoid. It is an experiment in terms of trying to deal with ethnic issues, especially when Singapore came out from Malaysia, right? Because when Singapore came out from Malaysia in '65, the Singapore government wanted to make it a point that we want to be a multiracial society, right? And we will not accept the idea of racial enclaves, right? They are not entirely consistent because they have set up these Mendaki and Sinda and all the various ethnic groups, right? But this is the kind of difficult contradictions, right? Right, which I think needs to be tackled carefully, right? It is also true that the minorities, say the Malays or Islamic people living in a housing estate that's predominantly Chinese, because the Chinese are the majority. right? And you go to the market and you go to the food stalls, and you cannot get the food that you want, right? Because it's not viable for the hawkers to provide. For example, in my estate, the roti prata man went bankrupt because there are not enough customers, right? So this is a problem which I think needs to be carefully handled, and it's not there's no one size fits all issue. So this is one issue that I think we need to think about more carefully. The other issue is about minorities and humanitarian situations, right? One of the fundamental principles that is being debated in capitalism is that marketization, right, or monetization, right, has to be balanced by social protection, right? And the social protection aspect, right? And since you're an academic, I think the very important contribution to this discussion is Nancy Fraser, right, American sociologist, who argues that not only do we have marketization, social protection, we must have emancipation, right? So the emancipative aspect, right, is social education, right? It is how the schools are run so that the different ethnic groups are.
Kingston, could you hold the mic closer?
Sorry?
Could you hold the mic closer to your?
Yeah. I'm sorry. The gravity is pulling it down. Yeah. So it's not an easy problem, right? For example, for example, you go to Bukit Gombak area, right? I always go there because the best lontong is there because strangely it is mainly a Malay community. I asked the Malay friends I meet there, right? How did this happen despite the Singapore government policy that you do not want to have ethnic enclaves, right? They say that it's because of the early days when a lot of the Pasir Panjang Malay kampong people had to be resettled, and it was convenient to just resettle all of them in one place, right? That's even in spite of the ethnic quota housing policy, right? So there are exceptions also, right? And the people there in Bukit Gombak are very happy, right? And I have very good experience there, right? I can tell you a lot of stories.
Thank you, Kingston. Yeah. Okay. So we have about 10 minutes left for the town hall segment. So I would please feel free to make the comments you have in mind. But after that, I would also encourage us to move the discussion towards how we can get to the place we want to with regards to decent housing for all, if people have opinions or ideas around that. Okay, please go.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
The social protection part is not decay.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, sorry, maybe before that, Zubi would like to make a comment. Could you pass the mic to Zubi?
I'd like to address the point about being marginalized by our friend here. Thank you so much for raising that issue. Yeah, but that, it's very consistent with all other marginalized groups, like LGBT groups, and people with disabilities. Unfortunately, there's no solution. But in my work in social service, I find that if you kind of find the loopholes and bend your way, you cannot look at policies to do this. I've seen a lot of progress made when social workers, advocate and defend the rights and needs of people who fall into these groups, and they seem to be able to make it. Like people with HIV, for example, people with chronic illness. There's also recently the government, due to AWARE's research, we made a lot of recommendations which they didn't follow through, but there's one that they did, which was to allow single, unwed mothers to actually gain housing. So that's a win, and maybe in future if we advocate more through the NGOs that we could get there in time. Thank you.
So more social protection, right?
Yes, social protection.
So I think that's a point that I want to kind of bring more weight onto what Keng Soon have mentioned about the capitalism and the social protection, right? So right now, what's happening, if it's not apparent to all of us, is that more weight is being done for the capitalistic side instead of the social protection side. And there needs to be a balance between both, because right now, if everything's about money, then where is the human in it?
Okay, thank you. We'll go to the person.
Yeah, I just want to I know that we're getting to what we're supposed to do in the future, but I just want to bring it back to what it philosophically is, I think, because in Singapore, as the panelists have rightfully said, it's a hyper-capitalistic society, and as a consequence, it's also a hyper-individualistic society. Everyone is to fend for themselves, right? But then, when it comes to housing, suddenly we have to live with our family members. No choice, right? So that brings me to sort of the idea about means testing this public housing as well, right? Someone who's earning 17,000 perhaps, but they have children, and their children might be queer, or their children might just hate their parents' guts and can't get along with them and want to leave because it's getting abusive. It doesn't have to be physically abusive, and they can't get out because on paper, if it's a 3-person household with 9, 6, 12, 18, it's $6,000 per capita income. They can't get rental housing, right? So, so I think fundamentally, we just have to think about what housing is for Singapore, right? If we want people to be creative, we want people to take risks, young people to truly set themselves apart. I mean, in psychology, we have this thing called psychosocial development by Erickson, right? People have to set their identity for themselves. If they have to be stuck with their parents all their lives, then what is going to happen to this kind of creativity of day-to-day Singaporeans? I've no direction on this. Anyone can just respond, but I don't have any suggestion on how we move forward.
Yeah. Oh, this time it works. Last time I used it and no one could hear me. I also don't have any solution, otherwise I would be policymaker already. I think something that I worry about a lot in this debate when we look at enclaves as well is that I think we're building more and more enclaves regarding foreign workers in this country. I'm saying this as a foreigner myself, and I know I'm Angmo, so everybody thinks I'm the 17K person, but I'm not. I'm also a social worker, so I work in healthcare. A lot of my colleagues are also foreigners, but not the very rich can stay in orchard kind. Something that really worries me is that, we have built dormitories for people who work in construction, and now we're starting to build dormitories for people who work in healthcare, right? Anyone who knows the new Woodlands campus will see on top there building all the dormitories, right? Because healthcare workers cannot afford to stay in regular flats anymore, right? Even 3 or 4 of us might be sharing, 6 of us might be sharing. We're getting priced out of our places, right? And if we're thinking about, yes, we are also contributing workers, right? Taxes in this country very low, but we also pay our taxes. We're also giving our work, right? And we also want a place to stay. So I think when we think about foreigners, we often think about foreign capital. And we don't want foreign capital because it is going to price Singaporeans out of their own houses, which I think is a very, very valid and important concern. But I think at the same time, I also worry the rental market, the way that it is going now, very wild, wild west, no regulation whatsoever, is a lot of people who are suffering who do not even get to vote. Doesn't matter who is your MP, because you cannot vote for that MP or for opposition for that matter. So I worry that there's a lot of people who really have no voice in this housing discussion at all, but who also need a place to live, who cannot get a house, who cannot get a subsidy, and who still want to be able to live here and contribute,
is also their home and they're also providing to their own families. So I think this is a part of the discussion. Again, like no solution whatsoever, I'm so sorry. But I think this is something that is really, really very concerning. So when we're thinking about these policies, I think we need to not just think about home ownership, but also how we can make housing something that feels safe and attainable to people who are not currently afforded any political voice in the system. Thank you.
So, who would like the mic?
Actually,
okay, we have to start making comments briefer, yeah, because we're running out of time. So we're going to have a comment at the back and then come to you, okay? There's someone at the back first.
so actually, Koki, should we I think my comment is more along the lines of like a solution, or rather current solutions, right? And talking about them. So I think like a lot of the points that are brought up here are incredible. But getting them to Parliament and getting them towards like actual possibility is a different matter altogether. But let's look at the proposals that are in Parliament now, and let's try to find ways to support them better and to reframe our conversations with our friends and our family, to make sure that they also kind of rally behind it and understand why we need to support these policies, right? Why we need to coalesce around them. So I think the one that personally, as an economics student and as just like a Singaporean myself, somebody who cares about making sure that everybody has some place to live, is the proposal that's been brought up by PSP Leong Man Wai, right? So I think that I don't really like the way that the PAP has responded to that proposal, because there's almost a non-negotiable aspect to it, which is, the cost of the land cannot be discounted because it's part of our past reserves, right? But let's look at this idea of past reserves and how it's really something that's kind of arbitrary, right? Because in the past, these past reserves have not been untouchable. In fact, they have been very touchable for corporations. So I'll give you an example. If you look at this thing called the Special Risk Sharing Initiative, SRI, during the global financial crisis between 2008 and 2009, the government used the past reserves to guarantee 80% of risk on bank loans to corporations, including unsecured credit working capital loans, aka corporations were allowed to borrow up to $5 million worth of loans from our past reserves without having any assets backing those loans. But then when the past reserves are used to fund our housing, it's a different matter altogether. It's untouchable. We cannot touch. But let's take a look at how land cost, right, is priced for things that we all agree, even the government agrees, is supposed to be for public use. So currently, right, hospitals, schools, like primary schools, secondary schools, those are not priced at land cost. Why? Because we understand that that is inherently an investment in the country. Why is it that land cost for housing is not considered an investment? Like, Singaporeans are an investment in Singapore, right? Like, why is it that we can't be seen as, like, why is it that something as simple as land or something as simple as property has to always be financialized, has to always be invested and grown? Why is it that money that is stagnant in our reserves is seen as growing when that money is spent on us, it's not seen as growing? But we're growing our children, we're growing our lives, we are going to school, we are going to work, we are living together, we are hugging each other and having fun together, right? Like, why is that not a form of growing? Yeah, so that's a question that I want to pose, and I think that's a way that we can frame this discussion about land cost and about past reserves to our friends and our family, so that we can better support like policies that are already on the parliament floor but are not by receiving a lot of derision from the PAP and from a lot of these financialized quarters. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll have one last comment, briefly.
Okay.
Thank you.
From an individual perspective, to me, housing, which is having a roof over your head, a decent living space will so-called help grow up your children and so on. It should be it's a matter of cost of living. It's a part of the whole cost of living. So I think the framing of this whole discussion should be about to have housing is actually a part of our whole cost of living. So if this cost of living is too high, then our quality of life will be reduced, or other part of our quality will be reduced. For example, right now a lot of people say that, okay, their CPF have been depleted to a point whereby retirement is affected. So these are the costs that is now put onto us. So to me, maybe my sense of it, given my experience, I've lived my whole life most of my life in the HDB, since my conscious life in HDB, I think maybe 15 to 20% of a household's salary should be about the kind of cost when we come to dealing with housing costs. Anything more than that kind of thing, there is no more public housing. It's basically something else. Of course, there are people who can afford it, then they can buy a better house and so on. So 15 to 20%, I propose maybe you want to think about it. That should be around what you can do.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Can we thank our speakers once again for... And also all the incredible, insightful comments from all of you. So a round of applause to, yeah. So I think when it comes back to the question of decent and safe housing for all, like many of you have pointed out, I think what we've unearthed in this discussion today is also how it's tied to so many forms of control, right? So there's social control in the forms of the state deciding who you live with, where you live, for how long you live there, when you can be displaced, right? And also political control in terms of who you vote for. And I think in the last few discussions, we talked a lot about how we build this city as workers, right? And so it belongs to us. And so, and the same thing goes for all of us who live here, like some audience members have pointed out, that we grow these communities, right? So these spaces belong to us. So, in terms of shaping the future of these spaces and how we can go about doing that, I think there have been some proposals about supporting the progressive policies that are feasible according to people who've done a lot of analysis around it. For example, by PSP, like how we can, as the people, get more engaged in these discussions, learn more, and support the policies that make sense. But in addition to that, I'd also say, we have a lot more power when we're organized. We talk about organizing ourselves as workers. We can also organize ourselves as tenants, right? So a lot of BTO estates now have chat groups for all the tenants. We don't just have to talk about like who's taking the trash out or like who's feeding the community cat, but about what are the policies you want, like, and what, and that's also how rent control has been brought about in many countries through the people organizing and fighting for it. What are the kinds of living conditions we want, right? So can we form tenants associations, whether in rental flat communities or purchase flat communities, and start to have collective discussions about the futures we want for the spaces that we take care of, we live in, we grow our families, including like animal families, right? So, I hope that, this discussion has been as invigorating for all of you as it has been for us. We have some announcements before we close.
Okay. Hi. So, there's a slide for this, right? Yeah, next slide. Whoever. No slides. Okay, all right. Anyways, there are people passing like flyers around, so make sure to hang around. Then you can have like direct access to the information. But anyways, like you can Google and you can find it also. But TLDR Come for Labor Day rally is happening on 1st May. Okay. Yeah, so many exciting things happening, right? There'll be performances, there'll be speeches, we'll be making demands, we'll be talking about the things that we talked about today over here also. And it's very important that, we have the opportunity to bring together everyone in the working class, to be in solidarity, to make our demands heard. We cannot shut up anymore. We need to be there together and make sure that our demands are heard, that our voices are heard, and we make sure that change happens in Singapore. We don't have to die until we see these changes made, okay? Yeah, so later on, you can find whoever has a flyer. A few things in the QR code lah. So one thing is that you can indicate that you would be at Labor Day rally on 1st May at Hong Lim Park. And another thing is, if you want to get involved with various social justice organizations like WMP, Workers Make Possible, Transformative Justice Collective, student groups, SG Climate Rally, all of those information are also in the link. And another important thing is that we haven't covered costs for venue rental. So it's very important, that we have brought people together across various town halls, and we hope that if you have the capacity to, be able to contribute financially as well, so that we can cover the rent cost lah. And yeah, so important that we are part of the movement, take action. Every time I go to Hong Lim Park and be just surrounded by people, not even just at Hong Lim Park, like here itself, right? It's just so energizing to just be surrounded by people who collectively care about, how messed up the current state of our world is and want to do something about it, or at least care enough to be present and think of ways that we could move forward. So really, trust me, go to Hong Lim Park on 1st May and be together with everyone here and everyone else more who would be there also. Yeah, and also, hang around after this town hall. Don't run away unless you really have something urgent to go to, then please go. But otherwise please hang around, talk to people. And if you want to learn how to get more involved in various organizations, you can speak to the organizers who are here also. Yeah, otherwise hang around, talk to one another as well, think about ways that we can move forward. And of course, a very big thank you to the projector for letting us have this space at a subsidized rate. Okay, so I'll see all of you on 1st May. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we have to chant before we end, okay? So we're going to say 1, 2, 3. I say 1, 2, 3, and you say power to the people. Okay, we practice for Labor Day. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Power to the people. 1, 2, 3. Power to the people. Who builds this city? Okay, sorry, I must say the chant first. Okay, workers? Yes. What? Who builds this city? Yes. Who builds this city? Workers. Who grows our communities? Workers. And who should make the decisions about how we live in this society? Workers. That's right. Okay. Have a great evening.